Daniel Wren lived alone in the mountains. His small wooden cabin stood by a frozen lake. Far from cities, far from people, the snow outside was silent. The wind howled like an old memory. He liked it this way. Daniel used to be someone important. A long time ago, he was a diplomat and ambassador from Earth to the stars. But now, Earth had turned quiet. The sky was just sky again. The world had forgotten what was above. He didn't mind, not really. Then one morning, there was a knock on his door. It was soft, almost unsure. Daniel paused. He never got visitors. There were no neighbors nearby. No one should be here. He stood slowly, wrapped in a thick sweater, and opened the door. A tall woman stood outside, dressed in dark silver robes that shimmered without light. Her skin was smooth and pale gold, her hair like flowing strands of moonlight, her eyes large, violet, and bright, locked onto his with a warmth he hadn't felt in years. For a moment, Daniel couldn't speak. Then she did. "I've missed you, human," the woman said. He stared at her. "Alira," he whispered. Her name fell from his lips like a forgotten song. It was her, Queen Alira of the Valeri Empire. The last time he saw her was more than 20 years ago in space, far from Earth. She hadn't aged a day. She smiled softly. "You remember." Daniel stepped back in shock. "What are you doing here?" Alira looked up at the sky, then back at him. "I came to bring you home." He didn't move. His heart was racing. Not because he was afraid, but because something deep inside had just woken up. The cabin's fireplace crackled as Alira sat across from him, her eyes taking in every part of the room. Old books, faded maps, worn boots by the door. It was quiet, except for the sound of the fire and the soft hum of the wind. Daniel made tea. It felt strange, offering tea to a queen, but she accepted it with a smile, as if she had done this many times before. He sat down, still staring. "I thought you were dead. I thought the Valeri disappeared after the Spiral Wars." Alira shook her head gently. "No, we survived. The wars ended, but not without cost. The Alliance fell apart. Earth disappeared. We believe you were gone, and yet, here I am." "Yes," she said. "I never stopped searching." Daniel looked away. "Why now?" She placed her cup down. "Because the galaxy needs you again. And so do I." He didn't answer. Later, they walked outside. Snow crunched beneath their boots. The sun hung low in the sky, casting gold on the lake. Alira wrapped her arms around herself. "Not from cold but from thought. This place is peaceful," she said. "But I never thought you'd choose to live in hiding." "I'm not hiding," Daniel replied. She looked at him. "You're not living either." He stopped walking. Her words cut deep. She had always seen through him back then. "And now, you left," he said quietly. "You left, and everything fell apart. Earth gave up. I gave up." Alira didn't defend herself. She simply nodded. "I know. I've carried that guilt for years." "Then why did you come?" She looked into his eyes, and her voice was softer now. "Because the galaxy is breaking again, and the council, what's left of it, they remember you. They need a human voice, a human heart. They need someone who still believes in peace." Daniel's laugh was short and bitter. "I'm not that man anymore. I don't believe that." He looked up at the stars, even though it was still daylight. "You were always the hopeful one," he said. "And you were always the bridge between worlds," she replied. Back in the cabin, Alira opened a small case she had carried with her. Inside was a small, round device, glowing faintly blue. It looked like a stone, but when she touched it, a map of stars appeared in the air, slowly spinning, glowing softly like a dream. Daniel stared. "That's," he said. "Our star path," Alira said. "Your path. You left a mark on the galaxy." "Daniel, they still speak your name on some worlds. The humans who inspired hope. They were rare. You were one of the last." The star map floated gently. One tiny point blinked Earth. A path of light reached out from it, leading toward the unknown. "You used to follow that light," she said. "Why did you stop?" Daniel sat down, suddenly tired. "Because I thought it didn't matter anymore." She sat beside him. "It does. It always did." There was silence between them. Then, almost like a whisper, she added, "You mattered to more than just the galaxy." Night fell. The fire burned low. Alira rested in the guest room. Daniel stayed awake, staring at the stars through the window. His hands touched the old photos on the wall. One showed him standing in a strange place and alien world. Another showed him shaking hands with a creature made of crystal. And another showed Alira beside him, smiling. He had buried those memories, but now they were rising again. Not like pain, but like music. Outside, the sky was full of stars, brighter than he remembered. And for the first time in many years, he didn't feel alone. Daniel woke early, before the sun. The snow outside had stopped falling, and the sky above the mountains was clear. Stars still shone faintly in the pale morning light. He stood by the window, watching his breath cloud the glass. The small star map Alira had brought sat on the table behind him, still glowing softly. It hummed like it remembered a life he had forgotten. Inside the guest room, Queen Alira slept quietly. Even now, she looked as calm and graceful as she did the first day they met so many years ago. In orbit around the planet SYR-OS-9. Daniel closed his eyes. Back then, he was young, curious, a chosen voice for humanity. Earth had just joined the Galactic Assembly. He had arrived on Sirius-9 as a stranger among hundreds of species. But Alira had noticed him. She was not queen then, just a diplomat like him. They had worked together to stop a trade war. Their late-night talks had turned from politics to poetry, from laws to laughter. She had been kind, clever, lonely, like him. He remembered how she had taught him the Valeri greeting, not with words, but with a hand to the heart and a nod of trust. She had believed in him, even when others doubted. Humans. Back in the cabin, Alira stirred awake. Daniel poured hot tea again and waited. When she entered the room, she smiled. "You never changed," she said. He raised an eyebrow. "I have wrinkles now." She laughed softly. "But your eyes are still full of questions." Daniel looked at her. "I was remembering Sirius-9. Her smile faded into something gentle. "I think of that world often." They sat again, just like the night before. But something was different now. There was no more shock, only quiet honesty between them. Daniel pointed to the star map. "That thing, it shows my past?" Alira nodded. "It holds a trace of your travels, every ship you flew, every world you touched." She reached out and touched one small light. A memory opened like a door. Suddenly, above the table, a hologram appeared, a younger Daniel, standing in front of the Grand Council, giving a speech in his Earth uniform. "We are small," the echo of his voice said, "but we are not afraid. We offer more than muscle. We offer heart." The memory faded. Daniel looked away. "I barely remember that," he said. "I do," Alira replied. "You made leaders pause and think. You didn't speak like a conqueror. You spoke like a friend." Another light on the star map blinked. Daniel touched it. This time, the image showed him and Alira sitting on a hill under twin moons. She was laughing, and he was playing an old Earth instrument, a harmonica. "You brought music to our worlds," she said, "and jokes, and strange Earth food." He smiled. "You hated peanut butter." "Yes," she said with a laugh. "It tried to glue my mouth shut." They laughed together, and for a moment, the weight of years lifted. Then Daniel turned serious. "You said the galaxy is breaking again. How bad is it?" Alira's smile faded. "The fracture block is rising," she said. "New species who see the old alliances as weak. They say the assembly failed. That piece is a lie. And you think I can stop that?" "I know you can," she said. Daniel looked down. "I'm not a leader anymore, Alira. I'm just a man with a cold cabin and a rusty truck." She leaned forward. "You were never just anything. You were the bridge between minds that didn't understand each other. You showed us how to listen." "But Earth left the stars," he said. "We turned away. We shut our skies." "Not all of you," she said. "You're still here, and you still care." They went outside again. The sun had fully risen. The lake reflected the sky like a mirror. Daniel walked slowly, hands in his coat pockets. Alira followed beside him. He said, I stayed here to be forgotten. She looked at him. And yet I found you. He stopped walking. Why me, Alira? After all this time. Why not find someone else? She was quiet for a moment, then answered honestly. Because I trusted you. I still do. And she looked away briefly. You were never just a symbol to me, Daniel. You were my friend. Daniel's heart ached at those words. They stood by the frozen edge of the lake, not speaking. The wind moved gently across the water's surface. That night, Daniel sat alone with the star map. He touched it again, and more memories came, his voice translating for alien delegates. Holding a child from a desert world, sharing Earth's stories of survival and love and hope. He watched them all, eyes wide, like he was seeing his younger self for the first time. That man in the memories had courage, not just in battle or words, but in caring when others stayed cold. He remembered now what it meant to be human, not perfect, not powerful, but full of heart. He looked toward the guest room, and for the first time in years, he wondered if maybe, just maybe, he still had something to give. The next morning, the mountains were quiet again. A light snow had returned. But Daniel Wren barely noticed it. His thoughts were too loud. He stood outside his cabin, chopping firewood. Each swing of the axe gave him something to focus on, something real. But no matter how many logs he split, he couldn't stop thinking about the night before. Inside the cabin, Queen Alira sat near the fireplace. She watched the star map floating in the air, showing stars, ships, and places Daniel hadn't seen in decades. She looked up as he came back in, brushing snow from his jacket. You're up early, he said. I don't sleep much, she replied. Not since the war ended. Daniel poured himself some hot coffee and sat across from her. He stared at the star map. You came all this way just to bring back one man. Alira nodded slowly. I didn't come just for you. I came for what you represent. He raised an eyebrow. And what's that? She looked into his eyes. Hope. Daniel didn't respond right away. He sipped his coffee, thinking. Finally, he asked, what happened to the assembly? Alira spoke with a calm, steady voice. After Earth went silent, things changed. Many of the smaller worlds lost their faith in unity. The fracture block grew stronger. They believe cooperation makes us weak. They're wrong, Daniel said. They are, but they're loud and dangerous. They say the time of peace is over. They want to erase the old ways. Daniel leaned back. And you think I can fix that? No. I think you can remind them why peace mattered in the first place. Alira stood and walked to the window. The forest outside was covered in white. Her voice was softer now. There was a time when a single human could change everything. Not with power. With presence. You showed the galaxy that kindness wasn't weakness. That honesty could build bridges. She turned to him. You're not forgotten, Daniel. Not by the people who still believe. Daniel ran a hand through his graying hair. It's been 20 years, Alira. I'm not the same man. I know, she said gently. But you still have the same heart. Daniel stood up. He needed air. He stepped outside again, snow crunching under his boots. He remembered standing on the floors of alien parliaments, speaking to beings of light and metal, of sand and flame. He remembered laughter on ships, songs in alien languages, arguments that turned into agreements. He remembered being part of something bigger. And then he remembered the silence, when Earth turned its face away from the stars, when politics, fear, and time shut the gates, when his last message was never answered. That silence had broken him. But now, Alira had brought the stars back to him. He came back inside, quiet. Alira looked at him. I want to show you something. She opened a panel in her bracelet. A small blue screen floated in the air. It showed a video, a message from the Valeri Council. Daniel watched carefully. The council members spoke. Queen Alira has requested we bring back the last human emissary. If he accepts, we offer him the title of honorary arbiter in the galactic peace trials. His voice will carry weight across all factions. The message ended. Daniel looked at her, surprised. You didn't tell me that. Alira sat down again. I didn't want to pressure you. I wanted you to choose freely. He was quiet for a long time. Then he asked, "What if I say no?" Her answer was simple. "Then I'll return alone, and I will respect your choice." She looked at him with a small, sad smile. "But I will miss you again." That night, Daniel didn't sleep. He walked outside and looked up at the stars. The sky was clear again. For the first time in years, he didn't just see cold lights. He saw paths, doors, memories. He remembered his father telling him as a boy, "Humanity's job isn't to conquer the stars. It's to teach them how to be better." Maybe Earth had forgotten that, but maybe he hadn't died in the morning. Daniel packed a small bag. When Alira saw it, she didn't say anything at first. Her eyes only softened. "I thought you might," she whispered. Daniel gave her a look. "You always were too good at reading me." They walked through the trees to a clearing. There, hidden under a cloaking field, was her ship, sleek and silver, shaped like a falling tear. Daniel stopped before the ramp. "This isn't just a visit," he said. "No," she replied. "It's a return." He stared at the ship, heart beating fast. Then he looked at her. "Let's go," he said. And with that, the last human emissary stepped into the stars again. The ship rose from the forest clearing like a silent dream, leaving only soft snow swirling in the air behind it. Daniel stood by the window of Alira's ship, watching Earth grow smaller with each passing second. He had thought he would feel fear or sadness, but instead, he felt something different. Wonder. It had been so long since he left Earth's sky. Now, the stars welcomed him back like old friends. Beside him, Alira watched quietly. "You're calm," she said. Daniel nodded. "Strange, isn't it? I thought I'd feel lost, but I don't." She smiled gently. "That's because you've never truly belonged to one world." The ship entered deep space, gliding through ancient lanes used by starfaring species. Planets passed below them, glowing softly. Distant suns lit the darkness. It was beautiful. Daniel explored the ship, sleek, quiet, full of soft lights and clean air. The control room held a curved glass wall, giving a full view of the stars ahead. One chair remained empty. He touched it. "Your old seat," Alira said, stepping behind him. Daniel looked over his shoulder. "You kept it?" She nodded. "I never let anyone else sit there." He sat slowly. The chair adjusted to his weight, just like it used to. It remembered him. So did the galaxy. They arrived at the Valeri capital 2 days later. The ship passed through golden rings, orbiting a vast planet of silver oceans and tall crystal towers. The city below shimmered in the sunlight, alive with movement. Daniel's heart beat faster. This place had once felt like a second home. Now, it felt like a memory brought to life. As the ship descended, he saw crowds gathering. Not angry, not hostile, curious. Excited. When the ramp opened, Daniel stepped out beside Alira. The people stared. Whispers ran through the crowd. "Is that? It's him, the human." Children pointed. Elders bowed their heads in respect. Daniel was stunned. Inside the palace, the High Council chamber waited. The room was vast, circular, with tall windows and floating lights. Council members of all shapes and species sat around a glowing platform. Queen Alira led Daniel forward. One of the elder counselors stood. His skin was like dark stone, his voice deep. "We welcome back the last human emissary, Daniel Wren." Daniel gave a small nod. "Thank you." Another counselor asked, "Do you still believe peace is possible?" Daniel paused, looking around the room. Then he said, clearly, "Yes, I do." Later, Alira took him on a quiet walk through the gardens. The stars above the palace were always visible, even in the daylight sky. "Why did they look at me like that?" Daniel asked. "Because you became a legend," Alira replied. Daniel shook his head. "I'm just a man. You're more than that," she said. "You were the last human voice they heard before Earth closed its doors. You spoke about unity when others wanted war. That made them remember." Daniel sat on a smooth stone bench. "That's a heavy thing to carry." Alira sat beside him. "You don't have to carry it alone." That evening, a celebration was held in the Hall of Harmony. Not grand or loud, but peaceful and respectful. Daniel stood quietly, watching Valeri children sing a song written in many languages. One of the verses was in Old Earth English. Alira whispered beside him, "They teach that verse in every school." Now, he listened closely. He crossed the stars not with weapons, but with words and an open heart. The human who gave more than he took, a bridge in the dark. Daniel blinked, surprised by the emotion in his chest. The next day, Alira showed him something else. She took him to a large hall filled with archives. Inside, holograms of old missions and peace treaties floated in glowing blue light. At the center of the room stood a statue. It was of Daniel. Not as a warrior, not as a king, but standing tall, one hand extended in peace, the other holding a book of Earth's teachings. Daniel stepped closer. "This I never knew," he said. "You inspired more than peace," Alira said. "You inspired balance. You reminded the galaxy what humans stood for." He touched the edge of the statue's hand. "Have they ever seen another human?" "Not in over 20 years, she said softly. Daniel turned to her. "Then it's time they did again." That night, he stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The lights below danced like fireflies. Alira joined him, silent for a while. Then she asked, "Are you ready for what's next?" Daniel looked at the stars above. "Maybe not," he admitted, "but I want to be." She smiled. "That's enough." He looked at her. "Thank you for coming to find me." Alira stepped closer. "I never really left you, Daniel. Not in heart." He didn't speak. He didn't have to. The stars stretched on above them, full of challenges. Yes, but also full of possibilities. And for the first time in a very long time, Daniel Wren was home. The room was cold and quiet. Daniel Wren stood alone in the Hall of Talks, where the most serious galactic discussions were held. Large round windows surrounded the chamber, showing the stars beyond. 3 empty chairs waited across from him soon, to be filled by leaders of the fracture block. The galaxy was watching. Alira entered quietly behind him. She placed a small crystal on the table in front of him. It glowed softly. "This crystal will record everything," she said. "Words can shape worlds. Be careful, Daniel." He nodded. "Words are all I have." Alira placed a hand gently on his shoulder. "And that's what makes you stronger than any weapon." The fracture block had refused peace for years. They believed the old ways, unity, diplomacy, shared laws, were foolish. They wanted every species to stand alone, with no rules, no alliances. Daniel's return had stirred something across the galaxy. Old allies were talking again, but not everyone was happy. The fracture block called Daniel the ghost of a dead race. Some even believed he was a fake. Now, the block had agreed to one meeting, just one, and they demanded it be with Daniel Wren. To them, he was either a symbol of weakness or a threat. The chamber doors opened. 3 figures entered. One was tall and covered in silver scales. The second floated slightly above the floor with no legs, just a misty lower body. And the third wore a dark cloak with glowing red eyes. They sat, eyes locked on Daniel. The leader, a creature named Verkel, spoke first. His voice was rough, sharp. "So, the human speaks again." Daniel didn't flinch. "Yes, I do. Your people are gone," Verkel growled. "Why should we listen to a ghost?" Daniel stepped forward. "Because I remember what peace feels like. I remember the sound of laughter between species. I remember children born on ships from 2 different worlds. I remember a time when we weren't afraid of each other." The second figure, Xianlu, floated closer. Her voice was soft, but mocking. "And where did all that peace get you, human? Your world fell silent. Your leaders vanished. You lost everything." Daniel looked straight at her. "We lost contact with the stars, but not with our values." He took a breath and walked to the center of the room. "My people made mistakes. We weren't perfect, but we tried to learn. We tried to build trust. And when things got hard, we didn't run, we reached out." The third figure, Maltef, leaned forward. "And now, what do you offer us?" Daniel looked them in the eyes. "One by one, I offer a reminder," he said. "That strength isn't about power. It's about connection. You think independence makes you safe, but isolation leads to fear, and fear leads to war. Raquel growled. War is how the strong survive and know, Daniel said firmly. War is how everyone loses something. The room fell silent. Daniel touched the crystal. A new image appeared in the air, a child with mixed features, part Valeri, part another species. She laughed as she ran across a garden under twin suns. She was born because the worlds trusted each other, Daniel said. She's the future, and she won't grow up strong because she fought. She'll grow up strong because we made her world safe to dream. Xianlu's mist shifted slowly. You speak with warmth, but we have seen too much betrayal, Daniel nodded. So have I, but I haven't let it turn me cold. Raquel stood. You speak well, human, but your words change nothing. Our people want freedom, not chains of peace. Daniel's voice stayed calm. Then let them hear both sides. Let them choose. Maltef asked, what would you risk for peace? Daniel stepped closer. Everything, he said. The room went quiet again. Even the air seemed still. Later, Alira found Daniel outside, sitting on the palace balcony. She sat beside him. They didn't agree. She said quietly, no. Daniel replied. But they didn't walk out either. She smiled a little. You planted a seed. Daniel looked up at the stars. They may not want peace now, but they listened. That's more than anyone expected. Alira turned to him. You did what no one else could. You reminded them they still have a choice. He chuckled. Strange how heavy words can be, and yet you carry them well. That night, a message came through the star map. It was from a young leader within the fracture block. She had seen the recording of Daniel's speech. Her people were divided. Some still wanted war, but many were beginning to wonder if there was another way. She asked for a private meeting. Daniel looked at Alira. She smiled. Looks like someone lit a fire. He smiled back. No, he said. We just reminded them where the light is. As the stars turned above, Daniel knew this was only the beginning. But now, he wasn't alone, and that made all the difference. The hall was bright and full of life. Daniel Wren stood in the center, surrounded by representatives from many species. They were gathered for the first meeting of the new Galactic Coalition, a group born from hope, not fear. Alira stood beside him, her violet eyes shining with pride. Together, they looked out at the crowd. This is what we dreamed of, she said softly. Daniel nodded. Not a kingdom, not a war, but a family. The years since his return had been difficult. Old wounds still ached. The fracture block had not disappeared, but its power had weakened. Many worlds chose dialogue over battle. Daniel had traveled from planet to planet, listening to fears and hopes alike. Sometimes he had to speak loudly. Other times, he just listened. But always, he carried one message: unity is strength. The Coalition's charter was simple but powerful. No species will dominate another. Every voice will be heard. Differences will be celebrated, not feared. As Daniel spoke these words, a young Valeri child stepped forward. She was shy but brave, holding a small book. This is the story of Daniel Wren, she said quietly. The human who helped us remember hope. Daniel smiled and took the book. He felt something new, a deep warmth spreading in his chest. This was more than a mission now. It was a legacy. Later, Daniel walked through the city gardens with Alira. Flowers from dozens of worlds bloomed under the twin suns. The air smelled sweet and fresh. Do you think Earth will ever join us again? Daniel asked. Alira looked up at the sky. Maybe. But it will be because people like you remind them why the stars matter. He smiled. I never thought I would find a home among the stars again. You always had one, she said. You just forgot. That evening, they watched the city lights flicker as night fell. Children played nearby, their laughter echoing like music. Daniel felt peace, something he had not known in a long time. He turned to Alira. Thank you for bringing me back. She took his hand gently. Thank you for coming. They stood together, looking up at the endless stars. In the days that followed, Daniel received messages from distant worlds. Some were old friends, others new allies. One came from Earth. A small group of humans had built a secret ship, traveling quietly to reconnect. They wanted to join the coalition. Daniel read their message aloud. "We heard your call. We want to come home." Tears filled his eyes. The galaxy was changing. Slowly, but surely, it was becoming a place where different beings could live together in peace. Daniel understood now what his father had meant when he said humanity's job was to teach the stars how to be better. He was not just a man from Earth. He was a bridge between past and future, between worlds, between hearts. One night, Daniel stood alone on the balcony. The stars shone brighter than ever. Alira joined him quietly. He turned to her. "Do you think this is just the beginning?" She smiled. "It is." He looked out at the sky and felt hope. Because this time, humanity's story was not one of endings. It was a story of new beginnings.